We'll be moving now to the second part of this two-part session, which is the where we continue where we stopped in the first session, and the idea is to actually build up now the code behind over there. We're not going to the databases so long way on to the backends, but we're doing the plumbing with the UI to logic. So it's easy to figure out how to move, continue from there. And also, Kevin is going to talk more about the using data and different ways how to collaborate with the backend systems during his talk. So, a lot of people keep asking us, okay, so what can you do? So I'm building a GPS application. I'm building application that wants to access to the phone contacts, wants to use the SMS gateway or send SMSs and so on. On Windows Phone, there are some differences, as I mentioned in the first session, and probably the biggest differences between other platforms are that developers can't do everything in the same way as they could in the previous versions. And the reason for that is privacy. Sorry. So that's one of the thing that we heavily concentrate all the time when we're building new APIs and thinking about the platform as it is and what it's going to be in the near future. And I actually do have also a link to a page in the end of this short presentation, hopefully, that will show you where you can go if you have some needs and you want to let us know what would be those APIs or those functions or features that you would like to prefer to have on the platform. Really quickly thinking about the platform and the API, so I have like 4 or 5 slides only, like quickly going this through. When we talk about camera, you have a camera access, and we will have, I think it's 4 o'clock or something. Today we have a talk. Jani Nevalane is going to talk about the APIs, how to actually use the camera, how to use that raw image, how to build filters on that side. Going to be a really interesting talk on that side because we haven't done those earlier at all on the deep level side. And also what we do have also is different kind of sensors. So we do have GPS, we have the location, and Drazen is actually going to build or show shortly how to leverage the GPS services in the phone. I think it's like 5 or 6 lines of code or something like that. When Drazen makes that, it's probably like 20 or 25. But anyway, so it's really easy way to actually access those APIs, and the rest of if you're using accelerometer or compass or gyro and so on, the approach is pretty the same. So we're not covering all of those just in the sake of time, but you will get an image, like a big picture of how to use those. On the networking side, we do have sockets, so you can actually build up an application that is using sockets, so you don't need to use web services if that's important on your scenario. And also there is a connection control manager that actually helps you really easily to manage all the different ways how to communicate and how to manage the connections that you have, as the name says. So Kevin is going to talk also in another session tomorrow about SQL Server. That's really interesting thing, because the way how the SQL Server is built in Windows Phone is that you actually implement a class, and then when you are building your database, you're actually introducing that class to that database service, and after that it builds the database based on that class. So that way it's already strongly typed when you get the data back from there. And also a lot of people ask about contacts and calendar, so there is access for that also. I think, Drazen, are you going to go contacts through? No, probably not, because but that's like 10 lines of code. I can show you offline after this presentation if you're interested about seeing that. And Also, when we are thinking about that, how to interfere with the, let's say that you would like to actually send a text message or email or take a picture in your phone, instead of actually going to the really close to the raw metal in a way, instead you're using APIs and services called launchers and choosers. So launchers are something that launches you like SMS message or something like that. But because of the privacy standpoint, the developer can't send SMS messages from the phone without the user knowing that. And we know a lot of these issues has been raised on the other platforms, that people are downloading an application and certainly they get their bill for the phone, and there's something happening on the background which they didn't know about at all. So that's the model for also the launchers and choosers. I already talked about the tiles itself, but probably the most important thing that I want to emphasize on tiles is that you can have multiple tiles, as I mentioned earlier, but also your backend system can actually update those tiles on the phone without, even though the application wouldn't be running at that time. And that's really interesting, because in that way you can actually engage your users to use your application even then when your application is not used, right? So if they pin your application on the front screen and you push some information to that live tile from your backend system, they will get that information to their phone right away. So through that, you can actually, if you can build your application in a way that you really leverage the power and the possibilities on live tiles, and the user can customize your app to their needs as they will. Let's say I would have a stock application. I could have that I click the application, it goes to the application, and then I would search to my favorite stocks or whatever my briefcase that I have over there. Or I could take that one particular stock and pin that one particular stock to the front screen. So I would see all the time on my front screen what's happening for that stock, even though I don't launch that application at all. So there's enormous ways to actually use that and make sure that the users are engaged with your application. So that's one of the key things also. And another thing also with the push notifications is that since they are called push notification when they are coming from the backend system, is that once they are pushed from there, you can actually have that push notification defining that if you react to this notification, for example, it's a toast notification, which means that it looks like a text message. So you get a toast in the top of the screen. If you click that toast, it goes to your application, it launches your application, and it can go to a particular place in your application based on what the toast defines. So that's pretty neat also, because with that you can customize a lot with the experience, and also that the model can be really dynamic on that side. I also mentioned about customizing your application in a way in the previous session that the application would seem to be more blended or merged to the OS, and those are the ways that you can implement your application to be, let's say, a music or movie application. And if you're doing search which is related to movies, it can actually pop up your application in the search bar and say, hey, you actually have an application that could give you some additional value for this one. There are some restrictions with the search extras. For example, in certain countries it's not available, but that's when you're actually aiming to the global marketplace area, and you have global customer range with the model that you have. That's really important to understand also. And also what I talked earlier about music and photos, so that's included on that side too. Something to note, there was a lot of talk about copy-paste and this kind of stuff when the Windows Phone was launched, because we didn't have copy-paste. There is a really good intelligence that figures out what you want to do. But as we all know, it doesn't always work, right? it can't know that this particular string is actually some kind of address in some location in the world, right? So in some cases, you need to have the copy and paste, and even though you could tackle about 70–80% of those scenarios where you need those, where you normally would use copy paste, it wasn't enough. So that was something that was included in the next refresh that we had on Windows Phone. But at the same time, also in the current version, there is also clipboard API, so you can actually access that also from the developer side, which is pretty neat if you need to build something that when the customer is doing something or the user is doing something, that your application actually can provide that information to the clipboard right away. Not going to talk so much about performance because Jani is going to talk about performance later on, no, actually, that's not Jani. I think it's Michael. Jani, and Michael is talking about the camera, right? Okay. So anyway, we have two really cool guys, Jani and Michael. Don't care who is who, but they are going to do really cool talks later on about those topics that I just mix up. And there was a question about the localization and that side, as Drazen already said. When you're building application for like a global distribution, it's really important that you can also have, for example, keyboards in China and different kind of Chinas, and therefore it's all included in the system, so you can just leverage from that side. Tools, we've been talking about that a lot, but probably what I would like to raise from this side is definitely the emulator side. So in many cases, people want to build a GPS-based application, locale-based application. Normally what you need to do, you're building your app, then you need to test that out. So what do? You run with your laptop outside and try to figure out how that works, right? Or if that's an application that you should do jogging or cycling or driving a car, in some work cases, people are actually doing that. So in the emulator, there are ways to actually pre-record different kind of routes and also define where the emulator thinks that the phone locates at that time. And I think you're going to show something on that side too, right? Location? Yes. He's really tired at the moment because he just ate. And also another thing which is really good thing to know, but Tuukka is going to talk about that more also, is the screenshot tool, which sounds pretty simple, but when you actually need to provide screenshots when you are doing the publishing to the marketplace, it's really handy tool because you just go into the place that you need to the screenshot and click a button and you're done. So I said about the resource that we want to encourage you to go, and there is this place called WP User Voice. So that's the place where you can go actually and suggest if there's something that you really need. But also another alias that we created, and I'm just checking that we typed that right. Yes, check my app f5@microsoft.com. So that's an alias that comes actually to me, Drazen, and Vesa-Matti Paananen. And we actually try to, as if we just have the bandwidth, we try to scan that alias. If you have a really good app, and I mean like which follows the Metro guidelines, which uses the platform's special features like light task, push notification, and so on, that could be the one which we actually start promoting in marketplace. And as I said in the beginning of this day, we want to understand what you do. So if you have a cool app, you're just publish that to the marketplace. Do send the link to that app at the marketplace, and also the description what you have done and why that is so cool. It's not enough to say it's cool. I love, my mom loves that. That's not enough. We want to know about the criterions. What you have over there. Why that would be better than the 10,000 others that people are sending to us. Those were the things that I wanted to emphasize on in the beginning, before we let the code monkey to do his job. And what Drazen is going to now do is continuing from the project that he finished last time, and trying to figure out how to get the whole application actually working. All right.
Alrighty. Hello again, I'm back. So, feeling so appreciated after those comments. He's too tired, he's lazy, and he's a code monkey. So, what we're gonna do is we're gonna fix some typos. For example, over here it says branch locatio collection, and we're gonna actually make our application, hopefully at least, work. So, most of this session I'm gonna spend in Visual Studio. I'm just gonna open the same project in Visual Studio, leave it open in Blend in case I need to fix something. So, as we talked about in the beginning, we have these different project templates, and for example, the data-bound application is used to basically show you how to create a really simple view model, pass data between pages, navigate, and so on. I want to show you, basically I'm going to build it over here because I'm too lazy to create a new project and write everything again. So I'm just going to create a new view model folder and a class. Branch location view model. I think this session after this one will talk about the MVVM stuff. Yes. So I suggest going over there. But basically why we want to do that is we want to separate the UI from our code so we can easily change the UIs. We can define only the bindings in the UI and do changes in the code behind. There are a couple of things you need to know. For example, we have this amazing thing called iNotify property changed, which will basically, once we call that event, it's going to basically notify everything in the UI that, hey, now this property changed, please update the UI to show the new value. I'm going to just create a notify method over here. As you can see, I really do get extremely tired after eating. So what we want to do is we're just going to check that if property changed isn't null. So when is this event null? Basically, if this property name isn't bound to anything, it's going to be null. And we're going to just send out an update saying that the property that changed was the one over here. Now, I'm just going to show you how to actually use this. So hopefully then it will make more sense. Right, let's make a couple of, over here we defined what our data looks like. Now, I'm not going to go and fetch it from a web service or from a database. I'm just going to create some dummy data inside my C#. We luckily have sessions on those things later on. So I'm just going to define some of the properties over here. And I'm hating Jukka's keyboard again over here. And the public version of that. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to return the name. And inside the setter, basically we're going to check if the name isn't the same as the new value. So every time we set the value of name, it's going to come here. We're going to check that if it really the value changed. If it did change, we're going to update it. And then I'm going to call my notify that I refined over here. So I'm going to say notify and name, meaning that now notify everything that the name property over here changed, and all the UIs will update. So it will go over here. I'm going to spare you from writing all of these by hand. So magically code hopefully appears. Yeah, just because these are in the same way as anything else. So we have description, a long description, price, an image. I'm just going to add using System Windows Media Imaging, so you can find this. We have an image, and then we have some latitude and longitude. So I have latitude and longitude because I want to show you the map functionality and these type of things. All right. So that's basically our branch items. And let's create a main view model then. So over here, I'm just going to create an observable collection based on those. So observable collection branch location view model, and say branch location collection. Create a new instance of that. So nothing too special here. We just created a collection of these. The one thing that you need to know is the iNotify property change will send out an update to the UI every time the property changes. And if we use an observable collection, this will notify the UI every time the collection changes. So add, remove type of things. But if you have just the observable collection, you won't get notified of changes that happen, for example, inside the properties. So that's why we use iNotify property change and the observable collections. All right. As I said, I'm just going to magically create some data over here. So what we're going to do is take our branch collection and add over there. So we could create a new branch location view model, set the properties, and then add it to the collection, or we can just say, branch location view model, and now IntelliSense will help us and tell us what kind of properties does it have. Name, tech, days, description, crazy geek party, yes, very long description, and price, TechDays is like a zillion. And for image, I'm going to use the sample images that we have, that we generated through Blend. So if you go to sample data, from there you find branch location sample data and branch location sample data files. Awesome writing this. So first of all, I'm just going to create a new bitmap image. Just adding the using statement. So again, using system Windows imaging. The hotkey is, of course, Control-Dot. So what we're going to say is create a new image that comes from this address. So it comes from sample data, branch location, sample data, branch location, sample data. Again, this is the best part of the demo. You see me typing. branch1.jpg. And I'm going to say that it's a relative URI. Now it's asking me for latitude and longitude. I have come prepared. Like this. And so this is just a location in Helsinki. Like that. So now we basically added something to the collection. And again, I'm not going to bore you with the writing the same thing over and over again. And there's my typo. Let's just fix that. Like that. All right. So now we have some data over there in our collection. We added some new elements, sample data, and so on. I also want to have some sort of a Boolean over here that would say, is data loaded? And yes, is data loaded? So we know when to load that. All right. So now when you create these applications and you create different properties and different collections and so on, these collections, and if I create something, if I create an observable collection inside my main page, it will be visible only inside my main page. It won't be visible on the other pages. So the solution for this is, if you have more than 30 minutes, is to build out using the MVVM pattern, build out view models and separate completely the UI and so on. Again, session coming up on that. The other solution is just having in your app, so over here, on the application level, you can just define static variables and then reference those. So if it's in app, every page can access that, but if it's inside a single page, it will only stay inside that page. Why? Because like inside the main page, if we want to access something from the details page, we don't know if the details page has been created and so on. So we're going to go over there. The project template has like everything that I've built so far, and this next part in app, the project template, the data-bound application template has all of this ready. So you can check the sample from there as well. If you're wondering why the mouse is jumping all the time, I have 2 key mouse pads, whatever, activated over here. So we're going to create a main view model over here. Just name it view model, like this. And again, create a static out of it, view model. And when we return it, if view model is null, we're going to create a new instance and return the private one. Okay, so the next thing that we need to do is once we have defined that, hey, we have a view model, and now if I go, for example, in the main page, if I go to app, you see that now the view model is accessible from here. So as long as it's located inside the app file, we can access them. I also want to load up the data basically when we're launching and activated. We'll have sessions that will go deeper into the multitasking, but in short, application launching, activated, deactivated, and closing relate to the application lifecycle on Windows Phone. How do these? When do the applications run? When don't they run? And so on. Launching happens when you press on a live tile. When you press on some icon, it will launch the application. It's always a fresh instance. Activated is when you've left the application running and left, for example, to check out your emails and come back to the application, then it gets activated. When you leave the application, it gets deactivated. Closing happens basically when you're on the first page of the application, press back. That's when closing happens. So what I want to do is I want to say when we're launching or activated, just go and load up that data. So go generate those entries inside the collection. Well, load data. And over here we're just going to say if the if the view model is data loaded is false, then we are going to say view model load data. So load data was this part that just added items to the collection. And I'm just going to call that from both of these. I like that. All right. So now if we look at our XAML, what we created in Expression Blend is actually, for example, inside our panorama, we have said, hey, that the data context is brush location sample data. So the data context for this panorama item comes from here. On the second panorama item, we have a list box. Its items come from this collection, from a collection from the sample data, and then this text block has this property and so on. So we use the binding syntax. So for the sake of simplicity, let's just put a name for our panorama, like my panorama, very innovative. And now basically when we arrive to the main page, we want to say my panorama data context equals app.viewModel. Before I explain this more, let's see if it actually works. So we're going to launch up the application, and ta-da, it does not work. Amazing. So this is the best part. Let's see. Let's see. What am I doing wrong? Oh, now I remember. So, when I did the bindings, in the last session, over here we've defined the bindings, and we've said that the collection name is branch location collection, and it's actually location collection. I'm going to fix that, like that. Run it and pray to God that it works. And it does not work. Oh crap. I know you wanted to see this. Okay, so now you will see how we debug in Visual Studio. See, we run it, we go to load data, inside load data, we add up some items. Our collection has 6 items. Yeah, and if someone saw me do a typo, please let me know. And go over here, we say app view model. Okay. Have no fear, we will fix it. So inside our list box, we say that the item source comes from branch location collection, which is defined over here. And then we say that each of those items basically goes by, it has an image, it has a name, and it has a description. Oh. Let's see. And now, because we do not want to spend more time on it, we will cheat. That's always good. Okay, my list box. Let's put it over there, and let's try this. My list box item source equals app view model branch location collection. Okay, so now it works. If we have time, we will come back and see why the hell it didn't work. For now, we are satisfied. So basically, we have these pages. Now the data is generated on runtime, fetched from our database, for example. And we want to be able, for example, when I select one of these, it will go to the details page and will show me the details view of that page. So, first of all, we go to main page. And for the list box, we say that when selection changes, every time we tap on an item on the list box, the selection change event will trigger. And we want to say that when selection changes, we want to navigate to our details page. That's over here. And what we're going to say is navigation service.navigate new URI details page.xaml. Now, to share data, you can do it through app, or you can basically just similar like to get parameters. So we could say just ID equals, and what's the ID that we want to send. Notice that this supports only everything that you can convert to a string. You cannot send objects or collections in this way. So what we would say my list box and selected index. Now the index over here is the same index as in the observable collection, meaning that relative, like this, that now when we go to our details page, we can grab this and take the appropriate element. For example, override on navigated to. So when we arrive to this page, we would go and fetch out what the index was. So let's put out over here a private string index and say if navigation context query string. So we'll try to get the value. Again, we have just a key and a value. The key being the ID and the value being the index of the selected item. So ID, and we're going to push out to index. If we do have a key called ID, we would go over here, say data context equals app view model branch collection, and use the index. Now we'll just convert that index to a int, from a string to an int, like this. Again, let's go to the XAML and make sure that this works. And let's run it and see. So, oh, come on. Like this. We select, for example, cafe. It goes over here, it shows us cafe. We select nerd, it shows us pancakes, and so on. So in this way, you could basically, if you want to pass some like indexes and so on, you would pass them inside the page URI. If you want to share objects across pages, you would do that through the view model, through app, and so on. All right. So the next part that we're going to do is to create a secondary live tile. So we had that pin button over there. So we want to take that image, or that branch location, and pin it to the front screen, to the start experience. So in our details page, I'm just going to say that for the pin icon, the pin button, when we click on that, we want to create a new live tile, and code magically appears. So what basically happens over here is we will go check if this tile already exists. If not, we will create it. You have to do this because if you try to create a tile that already exists, it will crash. So make sure that you check for this first. Now it's showing an error that it can't find the selected branch. So what I would do over here as well is I want to also store private branch location view model. Yes, selected branch. Like that. So I'm just going to say select a branch, and the data context is now the selected branch. Why do I do this? Because I can access this index. Like I save it locally, so I can access it from the other methods as well. So we check if we do have among the tiles, the active tiles, find the first one. This is link, is someone, so language integrated network query. We use link basically to say, find the one that contains ID equals index inside the navigation context. And then create up a new tile where you use this image and this title, and it will point to this address. Meaning, when I create it, when the user presses on it, please navigate to details page with this ID, and the data comes from this background and this title. You have other properties here as well, so background image, back content, background image, background image, back tile, and so on. So you can update these live tiles from your application, from your background agents, have a scheduled task that will go and update them and so on. We are going to use just the for the sake of simplicity, just use the sample data that we have over here. The only difference is that inside the sample data, we just have to change the build type to content so we can access it so it gets built with the application. So now what happens is we're going to select branches from there, press pin. It goes to our start experience. And if we press it, we hopefully see something. Oh, I knew that's going to work. So basically we have that the branches list over here. Now, also you'll notice that this does not scroll. By default, well, excluding the list box, the elements do not have a scrolling capability. But let me quickly show you how that happens. So this is also cool because you can use like Expression Blend and Visual Studio at the same time. So I'm just going to say group into scroll viewer. And now we would have scrolling capabilities. Let's run it again. Oh, sorry, I was running it over here. Let's run it over again, once more, with feeling. And now you have some amazing scrolling capability over here. There's not a lot to scroll because I cropped it, but you get the point. So you just right-click, say group into a scroll viewer, and it works from there. All right, so then we have share. So we could send out an email or text message or something like that. So let's again create a click event for this. So when I press the share button, I want to, let's send out an SMS message. So we have SMS compose task. And the email task works in the same way. So what you do is you define, well, in an SMS case, you just have body and to. But in emails, you have CC, BCC, and title, and so on. We're going to say, hey, check out this Uber hipster place I found. It's called, and let's put selected branch name over there. Now, we cannot go and say SMS task.send. We say .show. So what this does is opens up the same type of UI they would get if they went to the messaging application. The same thing works with the emails. So you have to show the message. You cannot go and determine on your own that, oh, now the user wants to send out an email or a text message or so on. So you cannot go and send text messages without the user knowing, for obvious reasons. For emails, you of course have just workarounds. You could just call your web server and send them the emails from there. All right, let's say cafe, share, and now it says, hey, check out this Uber hipster place. I found it. It's called Cafe. Now, if I take the nerd one, it's called nerd, and now I can type in the address over here or select someone from here and send up the message. So that's pretty cool. Okay. I also want to show you one more thing. We have about 10 minutes. So I want to show you the map thing. Or actually, let's quickly show you just to like emphasize that all the launchers and choosers basically follow the same path. So let's say we want to have driving directions. Over there, we would have Bing Maps directions task, directions, new, and you basically define the end and start positions and then show. And it will start using the Bing's navigation. It will show you how to get there by car. So all of these will work in the same way, all of these launchers. So if you're thinking about what's the difference between launchers and choosers, launchers always take the user to another like system application. They launch you off somewhere. They do not have any type of return values. So when we launch them somewhere, we do not expect them to come back. Choosers are something that we send the user to do some operations and we expect them to come back. For example, photo chooser task. They go, choose a photo and come back to our application with that photo. Okay, let's do the map thing. So some of the applications have this type of working, this way of working that basically they have the listing of, hey, these are all of the names, the locations, and then here's the map. And when you press on that map, basically the full page becomes a map, and then you see the pinpoints over there. So we're going to create the similar type of solution. So it's going to say on tap, and navigate to that event handler. Let's create a new page. I'm going to create a map page. And when I arrive to that page, map page, arriving to this page, let's basically take everything out and just magically drag and drop a map over here and name it. This is also something that's going to sound extremely weird to you, but we have name and then we have X name. X is defined up here. The difference being, name is accessible only inside the XAML page. We use name when we use templates, when we use animations, these type of things. X name will expose it also to your C#. So if you name it name map1, it will not be visible in your C#. X name map1 will be visible in your C#. Why? When you find the answer, please let me know. So basically, now over here, what I want to do is, when we arrive to this page, I want to draw pinpoints and tell here are the locations. So let's just draw pinpoints. And we are going to create something extremely simple. So we're going to create a map layer. And you could have multiple layers on your map. Let's say that you have an application that has a map and says like, show all restaurants, show us shops and hospitals. So you would have shop, restaurant and hospital layers, and you can basically just hide them or show them. So inside these layers you place the push pins or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be a push pin. It can be an image, it can be a video element, it can be another page, it can be a button in a button in a button. It could be anything that you want. Go crazy. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create that layer and then add it to the map children. So now it gets added inside the map. Now I'm going to say, this is quite simple, branch location view model. Yes. So I'm going to loop through all of my branch locations from my collection and draw them over here. I'm going to create a push pin out of every one of those and put the content as the name of the place. And then I'm going to say layer, add child. The child is going to be this push pin. Notice that it says that it can be a UI element. So it doesn't have to be a push pin. It can be anything that you want. Geo coordinate. And let's put it to, we got the latitude and branch longitude from here. And let's run our application. Oh, just a second. Did I finish everything over here? No. So when we tap on the map, we want to say navigation service, .navigate and go to this new page. Map page.xaml, URI kind, relative. No hurries, we have 2 minutes left. So, going to select browse. And tap on the map, we go over here, and you see that It shows that over here. Now, when you go to the additional tools, you can like emulate how the accelerometer works, but you can also use location. By default, it goes into Seattle. So if I tap over here, nothing happens. Oh, we haven't implemented, but let me show you this. All right. So now, as you can see, everything's over here inside our drawn. These push pins are drawn on our map. So how do we determine our current location? You don't specify which source do you want to use. Do you want to use cell towers and so on? You use a thing called GeoCoordinate Watcher. And this is what Jukka says takes a couple of lines. So can I create a new instance of that watcher and say, when the position changes, please let me know. So we're going to go over here every time the position changes. And let's say, when the position changes, we're going to center to the current location. E comes from here, so event args. And let's just zoom in a bit so you can actually see it. It's also good to start your watcher. So let's run it again. Go browse. We go to this page, and you see now it navigates to our current location, which is Seattle. So what we can do here is, let's say, Pasila. Okay, now we're in Pasila. If we click over here, we'll navigate to Pasila, and now you see our items over there. So you can use this. You can say, for example, let's put off the live mode. You can debug something like a sports tracker type of application. So you define pinpoints over here, and you say fire every 1 second. And now every time the location changes, we said our map should be centered and zoomed in, so it moves around. You also see the watermark on top says you do not have a Bing Maps developer account. The Bing Maps developer account is free. If you go just to the Bing Maps portal, register over there, it works fine. Now I want to also show you, I'm going to use Jukka's phone. So if it doesn't work, it's Jukka's fault. And we're going to run this just to see if now it will use our own location. Okay. Like that. I'm going to go browse. Tap on the map. And now it zooms in near Messukeskus. So now it's using our own location. Pretty simple. So to use our own location, what we do, we have a watcher, we initialize it, hook up to a position changed, and then operate under that. Now there's one thing that you should remember to do. This will drain your battery life pretty quickly. So for the watcher, set a movement threshold. Now the MSDN library suggests 25 meters. So what's the minimum amount of movement that should happen before it triggers off a new location change event? 25 meters might not be, you need less in some cases. For example, when driving a car, 25 meters is not nearly as accurate as you would wish. All right. So that's about it for this session. We managed to get at least some of these done. Open for questions. Any questions? Any questions? Yes. So the question is, can I create my own custom task? So basically, could you create a task that other applications would call? No. So we're in a completely, in an isolated model, meaning that one third-party application runs at a time. Applications cannot directly communicate with each other. So my application cannot go and read your application's information and so on. All of this is designed because of previous experience with previous platforms. So currently, no. Yes. It's just for the emulator. If you put it on the device, it's going to use the device's location. Well, you could fake it from your C#, but
Yeah, you can
yeah.
always code it, but
Yeah.
does it make any sense to actually have like fake information on your phone says that you're over there even though you're not?
So yeah, so basically you wouldn't hook up to the position changed, you would create your own and basically update the location from there, type of solution.
Kind of override it
Yeah.
on that part.
Any other questions? Yes. Incoming calls? No, for these type of things you cannot. There are certain things that you can do to launchers and choosers, but those are like the launchers and choosers list gets updated through version updates. Like 7.0 was much smaller than in Mango, but no, there's nothing that you could do to actually hook up in the middle of a conversation because it's not going to launch a third-party application to tell it, hey, now I got a call if the third-party application is not running. And yeah.
So that's one of those not so nice restrictions in some scenarios, but in most of the cases, the original idea for that one is to protect the users for not having like anybody is tracking you without you knowing and that so on.
Yeah,
So the question was, can you actually put the background agent, which is the way how to do the multitasking on the background? And yes, you can, but there is a limit how often the background agents are run. So it's 30
So we have two types of background agents: resource intensive, which will let you use as much CPU as you want, and then periodic, which has much more limitations, and the time limitation is every 30 minutes. So it would basically update your location only every 30 minutes.
Anything else? If not,
All right.
we continue in, I think, half
Yeah.
an hour or something like that. Let's put that high-tech.
High-tech machine. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.